All right. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Saturday weekend Saturday. I am completely bungling the opening of this talk. Hope everybody's doing okay, though. And welcome to the next Power Hour. And we are on schedule for this month. And I'm excited to be here. Got a lot of stuff to share, a lot of stuff to talk about. And I know you guys have a lot of stuff that you need to write. So let's see how everybody's doing. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Milk Dream says, I almost missed this. Yeah, that was my fault. I realized I didn't get my Twitter stuff loaded up, but I will be having a newsletter going out announcing next month's Power Hour because we are going to be moving it for May only. So for May only, I'm going to be on the road for the first Saturday of May. So I'm going to move it to Saturday, April 29th. And I've got the newsletter written. I'm actually going to finish it during our first session here so I can book it, and it'll go out probably a week before so people know that we're going to do it on Saturday, April 29th. Same time, same great Power Hour. But I'm actually going to be in Oklahoma City at the Oklahoma Writers Federation Conference. So if any of you happen to be in Oklahoma on May 4th through May 6th, and you happen to be at the Oklahoma Writers Federation Conference, let me know. I'd love to meet you and say hello. So I'll be there, and it'll be fun. In June, I'm going to be at the AuthorTube Conference that is run by Power Hour regular Shannon. And that I think that tentatively is scheduled the 23rd through 24th of June. So, or 23rd through 25th of June, I think, scheduled to do something with that. So that will be fun. And then I've got some other travel coming up. I'll be in New York City at the end of August for the annual Writer's Digest Conference. I'm actually running a workshop with my friend Maddie Dalrymple. So Maddie is the host of the Indie Author Podcast, and together we are going to do a workshop. It's going to be an 8-hour workshop on the ins and outs of self-publishing. All right, so both of us are going to kind of pool our collective knowledge, and so if anyone is interested, if you are a new writer and you're going to be in New York City, you happen to be at Writer's Digest, let me know. All right, let's see here. Keybale writes, drinking cinnamon caramel tea and looking at the pros and cons of draft to digital in preparation for publishing. Well, Keybale, there really are no cons to using draft to digital. Draft to digital is a great service. And I think a lot of people make a decision on, okay, well, do I use draft to digital for almost everything? Or do I just use draft to digital as one element of my distribution strategy? And I really don't see any downsides to being on the platform. I use Draft to Digital, Amazon, Kobo. I go direct wherever I can go direct, but I use Draft to Digital for all those places where I can't get into. And they continue to improve the platform. I mean, it has come a long way. I mean, it was good when I first joined, like in 2017, but it's gotten better. I mean, there are more retailers you can sell to. The functionality is really good. I've utilized the payment splitting with a bunch of collaborations that I've been doing. So, it's good stuff. So, hopefully, it's not a difficult decision. But if it were me, I would definitely be on Draft to Digital in some form or fashion. All right. Queen Alina fan, coffee, water, and a lot of Old West style recipes to get my head in the right place. Very cool. And Renee, Camp NaNoWriMo and coffee. Okay, Mara, comment of the day, trying out the new strawberries and cream Dr. Pepper. Not sure what I think. More research is needed. I have not tried the strawberries and cream Dr. Pepper. I have not. It's intriguing, but I almost think it's like too much sugar. And I'm not really a huge fan of strawberries in my soda, unless it's like strawberry soda. And I just completely contradicted myself. But I hope you pick up what I'm laying down there. All right. TextVet Jab, water and working on a chapter in my novel. Martha, working on a short story and drinking some coffee. Michelle says, good morning, all. Good morning, Michelle. And Gussie, good morning, drinking ginger ale. And Ramadani, watching from Tanzania. Awesome. I don't know if we've ever had anybody from Tanzania other than you watching. So welcome. So glad to have you here. And then Keybell, okay, thanks for sharing your experience. Good stuff. All right. So I wanted to give everybody an update on this writing app that I'm working on. So many of you probably have known. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that GPT-4 has come out. It came out within the last 2 weeks. And interestingly enough, the programming behind GPT-4 is a lot more complicated, and it made the app that we were building a lot harder to basically update to GPT-4. So it may not be possible just due to some technical constraints. But we do have, I think we have a working version for Windows at this point. So if I can, I will at least find some way to salvage what I've done and at least get a Windows version out to folks. The hard part is just that it's kind of difficult to install on Macs. Unless you're really, really technical. We found a way around it for Windows. It's really easy for Windows, I think, but for Macs, it's just a challenge. The app works great. It still continues to work great, and I think I can get it to work with GPT-4, but it's just not going to produce results that I think are going to be useful for a lot of people. So I'm going to continue to work on it and continue to find some ways to see if I can update it. I think that Microsoft Copilot that's coming out, Microsoft Word Copilot, that's coming in probably a matter of weeks. My hope is that Copilot will be able to do a lot of the things that this app can do so that all of you could do this directly in Microsoft Word. So we'll see if Microsoft does that. But yeah, these are exciting times. I mean, it's crazy. Like last month, we were in a different world. And then it feels like every week there's been like tons and tons of AI news, and it's like everything you build is obsolete. And I think I've just kind of come to the conclusion that I think that's the world we're living in. And I think anyone who releases an app or a service, it's only got maybe months, if not weeks worth of life now before it becomes obsolete. And that's kind of crazy. It's like a new paradigm. One of the things that I've learned over the last few weeks is I think we're in a new world. And when I say that, I mean, I think that everything of what it means to be an author has fundamentally changed over the last 3 or 4 months. And I don't think we've gotten around to realizing it. Everything has changed. There is nothing that is the same. And I think a lot of people understand it, but we're still trying to figure out how do we get through it? What does it mean to write a book anymore? I mean, what does it mean to edit a novel? What does it mean to market a novel? And I think the same processes that we follow are still true, but I think there's a paradigm shift. There's what it means to be an author is changing, and I'm trying to figure out what that means because you guys know, I mean, we got to survive and thrive in this new world. And I happen to find it exciting. I think it's interesting. I know a lot of people find it scary, especially with tools like ChatGPT, being able to write and read and edit, what's going to be the point of writing moving forward, right? And I don't really believe that. I think that people will always continue to write. And I think people write because it's challenging, because it's self-fulfilling. So how do we use the technology to get more of that? And worry less about the doom and gloom, which I don't think is necessarily going to come to pass. So interesting. Yeah, it's definitely interesting times. That's for sure. Okay, Queen Alina fan says if you want too much sugar, Fruit Quake Mountain Dew is probably a day's sugar in half a bottle. No, that doesn't sound interesting to me. I'm a hard nah on that. All right, my camera's out of focus there. Here we go. All right, Queen Alina says, new tech will always be a bit of a grind, especially since you may experience another GPT number jump before the app is end of life. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, but man, things are just moving so fast. It's just kind of hard to believe, right? So, all right. So why don't we go ahead and get started with our first jump here, first session. So you guys know how this goes. We're going to play some music for about 15 or about 20 minutes. And then at the end of the 20 minutes, we'll come back on and we'll shoot the breeze, talk about how we did. I'll answer any of your guys' questions that you have. And then we'll do it for 3 sessions. And then we'll celebrate our wins and celebrate what we have done here. All right. So let's go ahead and get the music going. If anybody comes on and it's like, what's going on here? What is this guy doing? You guys know what to do. All right. Happy writing, everybody. Let's get started. All right. Well, let's see how everybody did. Let me know in the comments, how many words did you write and how are you feeling? I think that's a critical part of all of this process here. So how many words did you write and how are you feeling? What I'm working on right now is I'm actually working on a video review of Atticus, the writing app software. So the writing app, formatting app, all of that. I've been waiting for a while to do this, but I think it's time to do it because they've got a lot of functionality. The app has gotten a lot better, and it's a really smooth experience to use. And so I'm going to be doing a comprehensive video review / tutorial of Atticus. So I'm actually playing around with it right now, and I'm in the process of writing a short story, but I'm taking a break from it. I started a little bit this morning, and then I realized, oh, I need to work on some things for this video. So, because if I don't do it, it ain't going to get done. All right. So a few comments came in around AI. AI will never be able to replace books written by real people. You know, I don't know about that. I think that it will certainly be able to write books on the level of real people. I mean, just look at what Midjourney and Stable Diffusion are doing with art right now. I think it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to happen. The question is, how do we prepare for that, right? And I think if you're watching what's going on in AI art, and regardless of what your opinions are on AI art, we're not going to get into that. But if you're watching what's going on over there, I think that's a warning shot to authors. And I think it's not inconceivable that one day in the very near future, it could be a matter of months at the way things are moving, someone could type in a novel in the style of Michael Laran and Stephen King. Right? I mean, am I crazy about that? Not really, but I don't think I can stop it. So the question is, how do we make peace with it? How do we survive? How do we thrive? And I think the fundamentals are always going to be true, right? And that is continue to write books, continue to double down on being human, as Joanna Penn would say. I think you should continue to diversify your income. I think that's important. I think making sure that you understand the technology and its capabilities and use the capabilities that serve you and allow you to connect with your readers, make meaningful connections, sell more books. I think all of that's important. And I don't think people should quit being a writer. You know, I think some people are going to think about all this. Oh, I should just quit because there's no point. But I actually think this is one of the best times to be a writer, because if this technology does continue to improve and it does write text on the scale of a human, I mean, just think about how much more productive you could be. Think about how much easier it could be to get your stories out there. I mean, all those stories in your head, in your voice, in your vision. You just get a little bit of help from technology. I don't know. I think there could be some benefits to it as well as some downsides. Queen Alina fan says, at this point, it requires a lot of human handholding to write coherently. I don't know how good GPT-4 is, but I presume we're a couple generations out from being able to automate book writing. Yeah, GPT-4 is not that good for fiction. GPT-3 really wasn't that good for fiction either. It can write storybook tales, and it can write, something that approaches middle grade fiction, maybe, but not really. It's just not really that creative, and it tells stories in a very story time like voice. It doesn't really write fiction the way that we write fiction. So, but that'll change at some point. And it's not inconceivable that today if someone wanted to, you could train GPT-3 on, your entire body of work. And I would be curious if it could mimic your style and learn how to mimic your style. That's something that's on my bucket list of things to try when we can fine tune GPT-4. But I know I'm not speaking English, so I'm going to stop. Okay. Yeah, I just hope AI evolves to assist writers and not replace them. Well, I think it's going to evolve to assist and replace them. I think it's going to assist the people who want to learn how to adopt the technology, and I think it's going to replace the people who refuse to adapt. And I think that's true of any technology. Queen Alina fan, since writing is safe to do, I think natural writers will only be replaced if they stop writing. It ain't like dangerous factory work from the 1800s. No one wants to do. Yeah, that's exactly right. Right. As long as you write, you're a writer. Right. But what it means to be a writer is different now. Just like what it meant to be a writer was different in 2011 and 2012 when the Kindle Gold Rush came along. Before then it was you had to get a publisher. You had to get a literary agent. You had to, publish under a pen name if you wanted to be prolific. And then all of a sudden it was, wait a minute, you can publish and reach readers and do all these amazing things that we live in right now, which I think is a golden age. And then now it's, oh, wait, you don't have to do all of those things. Technology can help you with a lot of it. So how do we learn how to use the technology to do more of what we enjoy, more of what makes us unique? Just something to think about. Okay, the numbers are coming in. And Queen Alina fan is at 406. Martha is at 205. TextVet Jeb, 307. It's going well. Queen Alina fan, like I'm swimming through fog, but then starting a new story in a slightly weird genre will do that. Weird Westish, though I think I ain't as dark horror as the old Weird West stuff. Okay, well, that's a big genre. I mean, it's a small genre in terms of like readership, but I've been exploring potentially writing a Weird West title, and I've been pleasantly surprised at just how diverse you can go. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do. So it's kind of cool. So good luck. All right, Deb, 7,000 words. Happy April Fool's Day. All right, happy April Fool's Day to everybody as well. Keybale writes, will I compare Atticus to Scrivener? Yeah, I probably will. It's comparing it to Scrivener is not, it can be done. It's not really an apt comparison because from a feature perspective, Scrivener's going to win every time. I mean, Scrivener has more features than you can shake a stick at, and there's just nothing. I mean, very few apps can approach the level of features that Scrivener has. I think Papyrus Author really is the only app that can go toe to toe with Scrivener. I think it's more apt to compare it to Vellum. So I don't know. That might be another video I do at some point. Atticus versus Vellum. Maybe do a cage match or something like that. Because right now I think that they both have very, very similar functionality. Atticus has, from what I can tell, mostly caught up with Vellum. The question is, which one do you use? And which one works best for you? Because they're both great apps. Okay, Mara, reworking and fleshing out the opening scene in a short story. Awesome. Hey, Gussie, dictated 457 words. Nicely done. And Wylan is in the house. Hello, Wylan. Thanks for joining. Yeah, TextVet Jeb, I hate to think that my skills are obsolete before I finish my first novel. No, I wouldn't say your skills are obsolete. It's just your skills are actually very valuable, but it's just we have to think about them differently. And how to think about them is a question or an answer that I don't know if anybody has really figured out yet, because the technology is not to a point where people are mass adopting it. I mean, a lot of people are mass adopting AI, but it's not there yet at the level of some of the other apps and services that we use. So it's a big open question mark. I think the hard thing is right now it's very difficult to predict the future. And I think that is the hard part about all of this. Okay, Queen Alina fan, even with coaching, GPT had a very strong tendency to fixate. Like if you mention a dog on page 1, even if that dog leaves or is Thanos snapped, it will bring up that dog every chance it gets. Yeah, I've encountered that at times as well. That's just a computer problem. It's a code problem. They'll figure that out. Or better yet, a mathematics problem. Okay. Lots of questions coming in. Okay, Julia, what do you do when you're writing a short story you aren't enjoying, but you're doing Heinlein's rules? Well, Julia, if I'm writing a story that, maybe I'm not feeling it, I find that sometimes I don't feel certain sections of a story. It's not so much that I don't feel the story. But if that happens, the best thing you can do is not lose momentum. Keep writing and just get the words down in the best way that you can in a first draft final way and then move on. Right. And when you go back to the story, you might actually find that maybe, maybe you weren't feeling a section of that story, or maybe you weren't feeling the whole story. You started the story and you thought it was going to be one thing, and then, I'm kind of bored with it. I think that happens to us all. But sometimes you might be pleasantly surprised. And I think the best thing to do when you stop feeling it is just to keep moving, keep the momentum. Because if you lose the momentum, then you'll never finish the story, or two, it's going to take you 10 times longer. So the moment you start feeling that, that's actually when you should start putting your foot on the gas. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it has worked pretty well for me. Okay. Well, hey, folks, let's go ahead and move on. Don't forget, I will answer all of your questions. So if you answer a question and I don't get to it, you just trust that I saw it and I'll get to it after the next session. So let's go ahead and get our next session going. And happy writing, everybody. All right, everybody. Let's see how everybody did. So let me know what was your word count and how are you feeling about it. We did have one question that I wasn't able to get to, and it was from Michelle. So, having trouble deciding if to write backstory as conversation or memory. Well, Michelle, I think it depends on the context. I backstory, backstory is something you have to be strategic with. You can't write pages and pages and pages of it, right? But sometimes it may make more sense to have it as a conversation to kind of weave it in. Sometimes it may make sense to do like a flashback where you actually write a scene, or sometimes it just may make more sense to just layer it in the narrative as you tell the story. So as you come to an opportunity where you can share some of the backstory, you spend a paragraph or a paragraph and a half explaining it. And in that way, it doesn't impede the flow as much. And then if you combine that with giving some backstory through conversation, maybe some backstory through flashbacks, you can avoid giving it all to the reader at the same time. So I don't think there's a wrong answer. So, all right, next question. More of a comment from John Matthew. Seems ludicrous to have AI write a book, slap your name on it, and call yourself an author. If you can't come up with your own ideas and don't enjoy the actual work of writing, what's the point? Oh, I agree with you, John. I think that we should continue to be authors, but I do think that there is an interesting opportunity here, right? So just imagine with me for a moment. Let's say that you've written 100 novels or maybe more than that, right? And you get an idea one day to write a short story about blah, blah, blah. You put it into an AI, which is trained only on your work, right? It's trained only on your work. It won't infringe on anybody else's work. It just makes suggestions and things based on your own work. And so then it gives you a story. Well, the story's probably not going to be publishable, right? But it's going to be in your voice based on your own work. And then somebody still has to read it. Somebody still has to edit it. Somebody still has to figure out what to do with it. And maybe there's something really interesting there. Maybe you can take that and make it a basis of another story. Or maybe with a few tweaks, there is, you can make it publishable. I think what it means to be an author is going to change in the future. And I don't know what the answer is. But yeah, I agree. Being a writer means you need to write, but are there interesting use cases and opportunities for this technology that maybe we haven't thought of? Maybe there are. All right. Queen Alina Fenn says money is a powerful motivator. Yes, indeed. TextVet Jeb, this chapter is going to be a bear. I've got too many dangling threads to pull together. I've left things get too complicated. Oh, you'll get there, Jonathan. Just got to keep untangling it. It'll eventually succumb. All right, Martha 360 going slowly but good. All right, Luana at work, but catch us later. Well, hey, Luana, happy working. And TextVet Jeb says I need a Boy Scout to untangle this mess. Where are Boy Scouts when you need them? All right, Queen Alina Fan, learning a lot as I go about the setting, even though I outlined a bit. That's all good. All right. Hey, Gussie making good progress at 898 words. No countable word count, working on character sheets and concept art. Okay, cool. And Adoji, conversation action is my favorite backstory as a reader. Yeah, I think it depends on the context. Ron Ward, AI is great for blurbs, though, as long as your character and title names are mentioned. Should be no worry of infringement. Yeah, it is pretty good for blurbs. I will say that it's not at the level that I would write a blurb. I mean, if you had to grade some of the blurbs, it would be like a C plus, maybe a B, and then you've got to take it and do more with it. The reason I say that is because I'm on a promotion right now, and we used I'm doing a box set promotion, and we used ChatGPT as the start of a potential blurb, and we kind of gave it a roll and we trained it, and it actually gave us a pretty good output. But we had to take it and and massage it just a little bit. You really have to give it specific instructions. So like, for example, I've had best results if I actually tell it, you are a internationally acclaimed book marketer. You have made millions of dollars for your clients. An author comes to you with a following book description of blah, blah, blah. Here are some of the key points, blah, blah, blah. Write a book description that is optimized for conversion. No more than 2 sentences per paragraph, short sentences, use bullet points, And by that point, it's like, well, could I have written the blurb myself? Maybe. But agree 100%. It is very, very good for copywriting. And I just think it's only going to get better. Like, yeah, it's okay right now, but man, in like 6 months to 9 months, couldn't believe. And yeah, Dron says I had to rewrite my blurbs and I was amazed. It was precise, detailed, and better than what I had come up with. Yeah, and I think that's true for a lot of people. A lot of us hate writing blurbs. And that is 100% true. So maybe it's true. ChatGPT can come up with better than what we can do. I still think, though, from a copywriter perspective, it has some room to improve, but we're not that far away from it being perfect. Let's see. I think here, whoever figures out the answer is probably going to make a lot of money selling it. I think that was related to blurbs. Let's see, Daniel, I think AI is dehumanizing as Grammarly. I read for the voice of the author just as much as the content they're sharing. Well, these tools are in the hand of the beholder. All right. I mean, Grammarly recommends some garbage. And if you accept everything that Grammarly recommends, yeah, you're going to take all of the voice and the effort out of, or not effort, but the style out of your work. Grammarly's really not, you're really not supposed to use Grammarly that way. The best way to use Grammarly is to find typos. And you use Grammarly just to find typos and grammatical errors. It's not going to mess with your voice. But yeah, if you use it that way, that's true. And I think it's true with AI. If you use AI in a way that it bastardizes your voice, then yeah, it's not going to be an effective tool. And you're not going to stand out in the sea of everyone and their brother jumping in to use ChatGPT and all that. But if you focus on using it to make yourself a better version of yourself, that's the winning strategy. Okay. Emory, okay, I had to read that for a second. I try to avoid as many topics as I can that are very controversial, and many people will always see AI who uses it as bad. So I try not to touch that. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk about it because I think that eventually people will come around and understand the benefits of the technology. Yeah, it's controversial. There's some people that probably have unfollowed me or blocked me on social media because I talk about AI or because I'm open-minded to using it. But there were a lot of people that didn't want to talk to self-published authors too when we became popular and our art method became popular too. So I think just it's human nature. Okay, Emory, actual question though. I have 2 books I'm working on but can't decide which to pull my full effort into. Well, my suggestion would be to put your focus on the one that makes you get out of bed in the morning. What's the one that makes you most excited? Pick the book that engages you the most. That's always the right answer. All right. And if both of them engage you equally, then the tiebreaker is which book will you learn the most from? That's what I would use as my criteria. Okay. I have this question. When I write a novel, how can I make dialogues more interesting rather than writing the name of each character so many times? For example, historical information conversation. Yeah, Feta, what I would do, or I hope I said your name correctly, what I would do is I would just study the mega bestsellers in your genre. So if you write thrillers, what does John Grisham do? If you write romance, what does Nora Roberts do? If you write, suspense, or thrillers, what does Dean Koontz do? What does the top author in your genre do? How do they write their dialogue scenes? How many times do they use dialogue attributions? Knowing that they're maybe they're masters at their craft, they're going to do some advanced things here and there. But you could look at them and see what the commonalities are, and that should be your guide. All right. I don't think there's a wrong answer. I mean, I think if you're saying he said, she said, he said, she said, he said, she said after every single line, that's probably too much. But if you don't have any dialogue attributions, that's probably not good either. I think it's a kind of a Goldilocks thing. It's really more about making sure that the reader never gets confused about who is speaking at any given point. And sometimes there's a time to put in that attribution to reduce the confusion. Other times you can leave it out. So just think about confusion and think about what other authors or best-selling authors are doing. And I think you'll find the right answer that way. Yeah, Ron said, I put my self-created blurb in and asked ChatGPT to improve it. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. All right, Alexander, I think it would be cool if there was an AI that generated taglines and keywords for books. Well, maybe ChatGPT can do that now. I mean, it can't generate keywords probably. That's probably a stretch. Although maybe not. Once ChatGPT plugins start going, maybe that's not that much of a stretch. But yeah, I mean, maybe you could do taglines right now. You could try it. I mean, it's free. Just type in what you want from a tagline perspective. I mean, I've used it to give me some ideas for subtitles and YouTube titles and things like that. I mean, I don't think I ended up using any of them, but it gave me some ideas to kind of juice up my creativity. All right. So, okay, let's move on to our next. I know some more questions are coming in, but let's move on to our next and final session. And then you guys know I'll stay on and answer any questions that you have. So let's go ahead and get down to the finish line. We're coming down to the final stretch, and let's do it. All right. Well, we did it. I want to know how everybody did. What's your final word count for the day? How are you feeling? And, let's do something different. What are you going to be working on this weekend? All right. So final word count. How are you feeling about it? And what are you going to be working on this weekend? While everybody is putting that in, I just want to share something that I always share. Just want to make sure people know it's out there because I know we have some new people. But I do have a standing discount. Anybody that buys books directly from my website at authorlevelup.com, just use the code POWERHOUR and you get 15% off. I don't put any limits or anything on there. So take a look at the books I've got, and if there's something that can help you in your career, get 15% off as a thank you for coming out to my Power Hours. So you can get that at authorlevelup.com/books. So just click the button that says buy from Michael directly. All right. So I'm in the process at some point. Joanna Penn is going to drag me kicking and screaming into Shopify, I think. So at some point, either this year or early next, I'm probably going to migrate all my stuff onto Shopify. It'll just make everything a little bit easier, and I'll be able to run a lot more sales and be able to accept crypto in the future and, that sort of stuff. So, but anyway, in the meantime, authorlevelup.com/books and get your discount. Okay. So let's see how everybody's doing. Some numbers are coming in, but there was a question that came in just before we went to our third session, and that was from Wylan. And the question is, how are you feeling? I know you were sick and on the road at the same time. Also, any neat stories from the road? Well, I'm feeling good, Wylan. I got some sort of virus or something. I don't know what it was, but it knocked me out for about a week and a half. I'll spare you the details, but there's definitely some stuff going around. But I was on the road. I went down to Missouri and Oklahoma and Texas and back, and was there for some business. And I don't think I have any neat stories from the road other than I always take the opportunity to do people watching, and I like to capture notes in terms of interesting people that I saw. And I'm sure that there are probably going to be some interesting people that I saw on the road that will eventually end up in my works. But I wish I had more interesting stories. It was kind of a basic routine trip. So I'm pretty boring these days. Although I will say I did, I had to meet a magazine article. So I got another article published in Writer's Digest that's coming out in June. I realized I was on a deadline because I got my dates mixed up. So I kind of had to walk around the hotel parking lot and dictate a magazine article. That was fun. I don't think I'll ever do that again. But other than that, not very much excitement. But I dictated the magazine article, got accepted. So must have worked. But I will probably not do that again. So that's why you need to learn how to read your calendar, Michael. All right. So we got some words coming in. Oh, Wylan had another comment. I know you're not an artist, but in the sense of drawing, but do you ever draw, doodle, sketch things that you're working on to help flesh out the idea? Oh, yeah, all the time. And this was before AI art. Whenever I have an idea for a project where I'm working with a developer or, I just have an idea of something like a course or whatever, or an idea that I'm working on for a chapter in a book, I will sketch some things out. I don't do it for fiction, but I do it for my nonfiction. And I find it just helps me visualize what I'm thinking so I can articulate it and grasp it just a little bit better. I do use a tool. It's called Mindomo. I did a video on my channel a long time ago. It's probably been 3 years or so on this app. It's a mind mapping app, and I use it quite a bit. And I used it to put together slide decks and presentations and things just to kind of articulate my ideas. So I haven't used I use Midjourney all the time. I've been focused on actually learning a lot about Midjourney so that I can I can understand AI art when the day comes that, we have ethical AI art, and two, we don't have to worry about copyright infringement and source material, that sort of thing. And I think that's probably coming with like Adobe. They're releasing products and stuff. So I am playing around with Midjourney. I haven't used any of the sketch stuff. Like I know GPT-4, you can take a sketch and you can turn it into AI art. I haven't done that. But it's intriguing. At some point, I'll probably try it. Okay, Dallas Whitman, not much. Edited a few pages. Wyland says, this weekend, I don't usually get weekends, but I'm working on my serial fiction for the near future. Very cool. And Martha, around 600, working on editing this weekend. Very cool. And TextVet Jeb, 699, I'd like to finish this chapter. And if I can, the section leading into the climax should flow easily. See, you don't need a Boy Scout. You'll get there. All right, Queen Alina fan, 927, feeling good, trying to make this into a novel. Draft within a month, so hoping to get 4,000 words out between today and tomorrow. Very nice. That's a good goal. It's 2,000 words a day. All right, work in progress is at 3181. Better than I thought, but I don't think I'll have it again. I'm either reaching for a strawberries and cream soda or a Dr. Pepper. But I thought they were the same thing. I thought they were in the same can. I guess you said more research is required. Okay, TextVet Jeb for the novel. I'm just under 40K. That's a fantastic number. It's a fantastic number. So I don't know how long ultimately your novel is going to be, but 40K is nothing to shake a stick at. I mean, it's pretty mature at that point. Well, if you're writing a 90K novel, maybe not so much. But if you're writing a 50K or a 60K book, 40,000 is a really good place to be at. All the most difficult work is probably behind you. There's, at the end of a novel, there's always, whether trying to figure out when you know what's going to happen in the end and all that if you're a pantser. But I think the hard work is behind you. All right, Gussie, 2096. All right, nicely done. Nicely done. Edited and brainstormed during the last sprint. I was hesitant to start a new novella, but I'm glad I started it, and I'll work on it during Camp Nano. Very cool. All right. Let's see. Okay, so question from Dallas. Which one of your books is the hardest to write? That's a really interesting question. I don't know that I've ever had a book that's been like painful to write, like really hard to write. I mean, I think they all have their challenges at some points, right? Like, so for fiction, I think the hardest part of every novel is always around that 1/3 mark. And I've done a video on the 1/3 mark. It's on my channel. I think I did it within the last year. And that's the hardest part because, when you start a novel, it's kind of like the honeymoon phase, like this feels great. It's fantastic. Everything I'm writing, it flows. And then you get to that 1/3 mark where you've introduced all your characters, you've introduced all your settings, you've introduced kind of all of the plot elements, and then you've got to orchestrate them and you got to make them work together. And subconsciously, I've always found that that's the hardest part of the novel because it's like a traffic jam. You kind of have to unclog the traffic jam, and then things usually take off and they're fine. But that 1/3 mark is just killer. So I wouldn't say that for fiction, any of my books were hard to write other than that 1/3 mark is always a killer, no matter what novel I write. I mean, I've only had maybe 1 or 2 novels where that didn't happen. So yeah. Now for nonfiction, I will say that the hardest book I've ever had to write was the Author Heir Handbook. So you guys know I've written a book called the Author Estate Handbook, and that's estate planning for authors and everything that authors should be thinking about when they're planning their estates. So I wrote a companion book to that called the Author Heir Handbook. And that book is a book for heirs, and it's written in plain English to help them understand what the heck it is that we do every day. And that was a hard book to write. I probably got like 20% of the way into it and scrapped the whole thing. And then I did it again and I got like 10% in way into it and I scrapped it because what I realized is that it was a different audience, right? So like generally my books are written for writers, but I was writing this book for non-writers. And that was the hard thing because I felt like, okay, it's like I have to speak English, like I have to explain things in a way that, somebody who's never even thought about what it means to be a writer can pick up this book and understand it, and that actually was a lot harder than I anticipated. So I think it turned out okay, but yeah, that was the hardest one I had to write. Okay, Wyland strawberry soda. So somebody in the very beginning of the stream mentioned that they were drinking a strawberries and cream Dr Pepper, and I, I wasn't so sure about that, and so that's how this came up. But yes, strawberry soda is kind of a running gag. It shows up in my novels from time to time. Okay, let's see. Queen Alina, yeah, giving some words of support. Even if you're only in the first half, 40K is still a powerful place to be at. Good work. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you another thing. So there is such a thing as maturity of novels. I think I posted this like a year ago, and um, people really liked it. So like the 0 to 10,000, you just pretend that your novel is 50,000 words. All right. So the 0 to 10,000 is like it's like an infant. The novel still needs its diapers changed. It can't do anything for itself. So you kind of have to spend your time really taking care of it. Then once you get to like the 10,000 to 20,000 word mark, it's like an adolescent. Like it can it can put its clothes on in the morning. It can brush its teeth, and things are kind of a little bit better. And then you get to like the 20,000 to 30,000 mark, where it's like a rowdy little teenager. You just don't know what it's going to do. Like there's all sorts of weird stuff going on, and you're trying to get it there. And then when you get to the 30,000 to 40,000 mark, that's where you get the maturity. It becomes an adult. It can drive. It's paying rent. It's not living in your basement anymore. And then you get 40,000 to 50,000. That's the golden middle age, right? So that's why I was saying, Jonathan, that I like the 40,000 mark, because it's good. At that point, it's having its own family. I'm torturing this metaphor way too much, but yes, there is such a thing as novel maturity. All right. Okay. Wyland says, "What's the next novel to look forward from me going to be?" Well, it's most definitely going to be something in the Good Necromancer series. So I have an idea for book 6 of the Good Necromancer, and that's going to be the next novel that I write for sure. I am going. So I am also in the process of writing a lot of short stories. I think I've written close to 20 short stories at this point, something like that. And I'm launching a new series of short fiction later this year. And it's going to be called, I think it's going to be called Michael Laron's Amazing Fantasy and Amazing Science Fiction. I don't remember what the exact title is going to be just yet. But it's going to be it's 2 series. It's going to be one series of short science fiction short stories, and then another series of fantasy short stories. And it's going to be made up of all of my short fiction. And the reason I haven't launched it yet is because I'm circulating all my short stories at all the different literary magazines to see if I can get any bites. And then the stories will be published in magazines. And then as they come out of the exclusivity period for the magazines, then I'll put them in this series. And if they don't get, if no magazine bites any of the stories, then I'll publish them anyway. And then that becomes a new marketing vehicle. So when, let's just say, if I win the lottery one day and I get published in Clark's World, or I get published in a professional literary magazine, I can point people to the short fiction series, because there's some readers, when they finish reading a lit mag, they don't necessarily want to commit to a novel. Maybe they want to read more short stories. And so having a product that I can give them and send them to from the back of that magazine, I think will be important. And I think it'll also maximize the marketing for when I do get published in magazines. So I do have, I did get published in one magazine. It's forthcoming. I can't announce it just yet, but yeah, so those are the next things I'm working on. I am thinking about a spinoff in the Good Necromancer series. So there is a character who I would like to spin off, but I'm still thinking about that and the best way to do that. So it'll be kind of fun. Okay, so TextVet Jeb, it'll end up close to 70K. Okay, so you're a little bit more than half, but still fantastic position. All right. Wyland says, yeah, I've been hoping for more sci-fi. Yeah, I haven't written that much sci-fi lately. I have written some short stories though. So I think I that will be the shorter of the series. I think I may only have enough right now for like 2 volumes. In fantasy, I think I've got enough for like 4, maybe 5 volumes. Each volume is going to have like somewhere between 3 and 5 stories. I'm not quite sure yet. But yeah, just practicing sci-fi, keeping my chops up. I've written 2 time travel stories, and then I've written some futuristic stories as well. So once the magazines are done with them, if they accept them, great. If they don't, I don't care. I'm going to publish them anyway, and it'll be something cool that I can build. And over the course of my career, if I continue publishing a lot of short stories, you could have, I could have a fantasy short story series that could be 10 volumes, 20 volumes, 30 volumes deep. And then that becomes another really, really interesting piece of intellectual property that I can use for all sorts of things. So those are sorts of things I'm thinking about. All right. Okay, there is something else I want to announce that I want to make sure you guys are aware of. I did put it in the YouTube video description. Last month, or actually it was 2 weeks ago, I did a webinar with the Authors Guild. And if you guys know the Authors Guild, they're one of the premier organizations out there for authors. They advocate for authors. They do lots of really good things, including filing lawsuits on authors' behalf and things like that. And I did a webinar with the Authors Guild, and I sat down with estate attorney Ed McCoy, and we talked about estate planning for authors. So it's an hour-long, me and an estate attorney talking about all the sorts of things that you maybe want to think about when you're doing your estate planning. And it's cool because, I've got an interesting background. Ed is an estate attorney who works with authors. So if you live in New York, I would highly recommend you give him a call. He practices in New York, but he talks about literary trusts. We talk about passwords, and we talk about just a lot of really interesting things where it's really cool to get like my perspective, but it's really cool to get his perspective because he's a practicing lawyer. So to be able to kind of confirm and follow up with a lot of the things that I talked about in the Author Estate Handbook is really cool. So it's a free conversation. It's a free webinar. It's available on YouTube on the Authors Guild channel. So I linked that in the video description. Yeah, I wrote this book, the Author's Estate Handbook. I wrote that book, and I kind of thought, okay, I'm just going to write it because it's a book that it's a topic that I want to learn about. And I've kind of been pleasantly surprised how many people are receptive to it and really thinking about it. So this is a much different conversation that I've had with Joanna Penn and the Self-Publishing Show. I usually have the same talking points on a lot of the podcast networks and stuff, but this was totally different. So even if you've seen some of my estate planning stuff, you may want to watch this one just if anything to get the legal perspective on some stuff. I think it was a really great conversation. So, okay. Well, everybody, I'm not seeing any more comments. So why don't we go ahead and make it that time? I do want to let everybody know, I mentioned it at the beginning of the call. I'm going to mention it again, and I am going to send out a newsletter in a couple of weeks to announce it, that I am moving the Power Hour for May. So in May, the first weekend in May, I'm going to be on the road again. So I won't be able to do it at the regular time. So I'm going to push it up. So the next Power Hour is going to be Saturday, April 29th, same time, same great Power Hour, but I'm going to do it a week early. Just because if I push it back, I'm just afraid that things will start happening and I'll be too far off of my normal rotation that I won't be able to do it. And I don't want to skip these Power Hours. So I will be sending out a newsletter. So if you're on my newsletter at authorlevelup.com/fan-club, I will send out a newsletter a week in advance just so people know. But I just want to share it now so people can plan. And I'll also announce it on my YouTube community tab over the next couple of days. All right. So I'll see you on Saturday, April 29th, and hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Take care.